God when this life passes, and he asks, "Why did you not trust in me and not fight evil?" Because we as Christians are called to fight evil. It's one of the lesser known scriptures, Psalm 97:10. For those of you that love God, you must hate evil.
Yep. Amen.
And again, everyone is called to something different in the body of Christ. Some people are called to heal the sick. Some people are called to mend broken marriages. Some people are called to do outright hot gospel teaching. My call is to fight evil and to proclaim truth. That's it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Latino Free Minds. Today, we begin with a heartfelt tribute to Charlie Kirk, a fearless voice who inspired countless young people to stand boldly for their beliefs. Through Turning Point USA, Charlie ignited a movement, engaging hearts and minds on college campuses with a passion for freedom and faith. Above all, his unwavering commitment to Jesus Christ was the cornerstone of his mission, reminding us that true change starts with a spiritual conviction. Charlie's legacy lives on in every young person that he empowered to live unapologetically for truth and Christ. So just, rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. And, it's unfortunate that we have to be here today speaking about this. Um, Danny, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Considering with the news from yesterday, it was, you know, I got a little emotional um, with the news and what everything that happened. I'll admit I really didn't, follow Charlie Kirk that much because I think the audience that he was after was a little bit different. I was a different stage of my life. Everything that he talked about, not everything, but most of what he talked about, I agreed with. And I saw the influence that he had in young, the youth in the mission that he was in. So, in just that evil act, and I wish I didn't see the videos, but I saw the videos and it hit me pretty hard and got emotional. And Charlie Kirk is going to be missed. He was a great man and a great example for all people out there. I was going to say all men, but he was a great example for humanity, in my opinion. So it was rough.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that's kind of one of what you were saying, the downfalls of social media is, you get to see those videos. Sometimes you're not even looking for them. People, I get it. It's something that's happening, and a lot of people just start to spread it. And, it's something that, as far as I understand, his wife and kids were there traveling with him.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't know how close they were to him at that moment, but obviously the videos of the close-up shot is, I hope his kids didn't see that,
yeah,
you know, because it's even for us as adults, seeing something like that is just, it's something you don't, I guess nobody imagined they'd be seeing that happening, not
yeah,
just to Charlie Kirk, just in general to anybody.
yeah. I think if you're a God-fearing person, you know that that's obviously not good, and there's evil powers behind that. I think that's what is shocking, and um, it's really sad, man. It's a spiritual warfare. That's the first thing that came to my mind. A lot of people were making comments about it being political, and I'm of the opinion that it is not political. This is spiritual.
Hmm.
warfare. You know, we talk about it all the time. People reference it, but and you know, not to sound like a broken record, but you know how my mind works is that you know I I tend to look at things a little bit deeper. You know, root cause. Try to eliminate the noise and 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 dig deeper. And the first thing that came to my heart is this happened because it's you know evil at work. You know, it's evil spirits prowling and seeking good souls to take. You know, and I don't know. That's kind of what came to my mind as I heard the news.
Yeah. It's like I kind of like I said in the intro, right? Yeah, I think whoever this person was, you know, I hope that they get him, tonight, today. Um, I have other opinions that, I guess as a human, right? You battle with the human thoughts of, you want that guy to pay for what he did.
Mhm.
Um, but as I was thinking about it too, and it's like, why Charlie Kirk? All he did was talk to people on college campuses, right? Talking to people, exchanging ideas, and that's it. And even when he did that, he was I never saw him be disrespectful, condescending. You know what I mean? Um, and he's not a person in a position of power in the government. He's not an elected official. So it's kind of once you start thinking, well, you know, why Charlie? And one of the things that came to my mind was because he was reaching the next generation. I think since after 2020, and I think 2020 there was a lot of young people that voted for Biden, and a
Yeah,
lot of young people. We've talked about it from day one on this podcast. Is a lot of young people get manipulated and misinformed, and they get tricked into believing something just because it sounds appealing, sounds nice. And Charlie Kirk was trying to change that. And, instead of sticking with what sounds nice, he wanted to go with things that were truthful. And, I think him reaching the next generation was something that they couldn't take. It was something that they knew um, was bad for them. And not only that, not just reaching the next generation politically, it was reaching the next generation in a spiritual way. I think that is what was, if you want to give it a main reason, it's that spiritual warfare. It's that good versus evil. I know people say it all the time, and I've heard it in the past, and it's something that I think we've some of us here have said in the past is we're dealing with good versus evil, and what happened yesterday is unfortunately a prime example of that.
yeah. Um, I wrote down a couple of things, and like I told you, that you know, there's a lot of commentators that want to keep it in the political realm, but look at how in tune Charlie Kirk was with what his mission was. He created Turning Point, right?
Hmm.
So this is what Charlie Kirk knew. Okay, Kirk knew that he had to protect the children, the youth, because they were being under attack. Okay, um, And that meant, and I'm going to stick to the spiritual side. He talked about his faith in Christianity, and he wanted to be the influence, the person that created that turning point from the decadence that today's popular culture has. And
Hmm.
that just hit me as you were talking, is that that's why he named it, in my opinion, turning point. You know, he was getting people to that turning point, and
Hmm.
that's why they couldn't allow him to continue doing that. And
Hmm.
he knew that our children, our youth are under attack, for the same reasons that we started the podcast, is the manipulation. They're they're manipulating them at a young age. As soon as they start going to school, they're indoctrinating them. They're taking God away from culture, and
Hmm.
popular culture is taking God away. Politics is taking God away from the equation too. Um, there are some conservatives out there that put a big emphasis in God, and I'm grateful for that. Um, but that's what Charlie Kirk was doing. He was creating that turning point, and they're trying to stop that turning point. They're trying to continue what their agenda is and take God out of every equation, whether it's you know in the family, in the culture, out of everything. And if you pay attention to what's happening to America, it's the decadence. It's that taking away of God from our popular culture. We've talked about it before. America was based on Judeo-Christian values, and that's why America became great, and that's what it became what it was. And look at
Hmm.
how it's decaying. And you could, if you line things up as they're taking God away, America is failing. It's falling behind. It's becoming a third world country in certain areas of the United States. So that's what they're trying to do, and we can start getting into how I'm going to react, how you're going to react, how other people should react.
Hmm.
Um, last week I spoke about what's been troubling me since the Minneapolis shooting. Um, at the Catholic school, and it kind of ties into what happened yesterday.
Hmm. How's it going, Gio?
You know what? I'm blessed today. But this Charlie Kirk situation has definitely been weighing heavy on me the last couple days. We all talk to each other consistently, and I've said it amongst ourselves, like I don't put myself at a Charlie Kirk level, nowhere near it. You know, like for me, I'm just starting out. I'm new to this realm of putting myself out there and um, talking about politics, stating my opinions, um, putting a little bit out there about God. And I get it that Charlie Kirk was out there, man, and he was spreading the word. He was spreading the of conservatism. Um, and for me, he was just doing what a good American does, and using his rights, specifically the First Amendment of free speech. He did so at a rate of being very um, peaceful,
Hmm.
very respectful. And I get it that sometimes opinions hurt people's feelings, but it came down to a point where somebody's his 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 words hurt somebody to the point where they decided to end his life. Um, it wasn't it wasn't like a spur of the moment thing. Um, it was premeditated. Um, I was just seeing the video of the person that they think was the shooter was on the roof. The guy was there with a rifle. They confirmed it was a rifle, right, with the round that was shot. Uh,
Hmm.
it's sad, man, and it's hard for me as somebody that's just starting to put myself out there. It's like for a moment, for a moment, I couldn't believe it because I was on the phone with Daniel and we were talking about something completely different. This is Daniel on the top there, the very top of the screen. I was on the phone with him, and he mentioned it, and I was like, maybe it's not what you think it is. Maybe there was just a gunshot because there was a report from uh, uh, what's his name, Informed with Anthony, that
Hmm.
he had been shot, and I was like, no, 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 that can't be right. I immediately went to look it up, and there was only one report that said that there was a shooting at the university or a shot at the university. So and then we saw the video, the first video that came out where Charlie Kirk moved back. I'm sorry for the ones that don't want to hear about it and get those images in their head again. But you don't see any blood, you didn't see anything, and I thought, he's okay. He's gonna be all right because I see pictures from earlier in the event, and I can see he's got a vest on. He's all right. And I said that to Danny. I was like, he wears a bulletproof vest. He's gonna be okay. And then the the more graphic video came out, and that's when I started to think like, man, I am I doing the right thing here? Like putting myself out there and putting my opinions out there, saying what because the other side, and I don't consider myself left wing or right wing. I like to think of myself more as common sense. But the liberal side doesn't see me like that. I know they don't see me like that because I see them in the comments and they they'll spend their day to come and attack you. And you know, but like I said, as being somebody that's just new to this and having people come at me, it feels weird. And then I start to think like, man, is this really worth doing so? It is it worth putting myself at risk or my family at risk? And then as the day went on, and I have to admit, I went into prayer. Like Danny said, this is I see this as spiritual also. And I was in prayer and I was like, you know what, God, what do I do here? Because I'm at odds with myself. And I was talking with some friends, um, you know, just going back and forth and getting away from that, getting back to God, and I finally came to the realization, I could have died. I could have died several times. My day could have already come and gone, but God's already put me on this path and set me up with a co-host on DMU. He set me up with my friends here at Latino Free Minds and at Lead, like, and we have something good going. A fight for California right now, but really a fight for common sense. And I thought, you know what, I this isn't to honor Charlie Kirk because I don't know Charlie Kirk on a personal level, so I can't say like this is to honor him. Um, but in respect to him, but to honor God, I have to continue, and I have to stand up and continue forward with this movement of saying the things that need to be said. And maybe for some people, you might not agree with me, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with all the things that I say. You might not agree with anything that I say, and that's okay with me. I respect your opinion, and I would happily sit down with you to discuss. Debate, not so much. I'm not much of a debater, but to sit down and discuss, sure. If you're not going to change your mind, maybe the discussion won't last long, because you're not going to change my mind. I'm stuck in my conviction, um, and I'm going to continue forward, even after this.
Yeah.
I
No,
want
I get what
to
you're saying. Go ahead. Go ahead, Danny.
real quick, and I just want to get this off my chest. Is that look, I'm gonna hit you square between the eyes with what I believe is the truth. Okay,
Hmm.
Charlie Kirk was a real man. Okay, he was a fighter and he was a protector. Being a real man, a fighter, a protector is not easy. That means that you put yourself in danger to protect your family, to protect your kids, to protect your neighbors. Okay? That's a real man. And I'm man enough to tell you that I might not have been or acted like a real man throughout my adulthood. I haven't made the sacrifices that Charlie Kirk has made to put himself out there, to be vocal, to have that confidence to do that. Okay. And I just, like I said last week, we have to take accountability. And I'm, this is me being accountable. And for anybody that's going to take a step back after this has happened, you know, at whatever level you're doing this, and, we're doing it for the same reasons because we know what's right and we know what's wrong. Like Gio said, we don't have to agree on every single little thing, but the core mission is to do what's right and
Hmm.
acknowledging that what our leadership is doing or isn't doing isn't right. Okay. And that's what Charlie Kirk was doing at a level that we can't even imagine. We could try the as hard as we possibly can, and we will not reach those heights. Charlie Kirk was special in that way. God touched him, the ability to be able to communicate the way that he did. And he was reaching the youth, man.
Hmm.
He had a gift, and the
Hmm.
devil could not take it. He knew that he couldn't allow him to continue. But Charlie Cook was a real man. He was a protector.
Hmm.
And, um, we got to look in the mirror and go, are we even remotely close to being a real man and stand up and protect our, it depends on where you're at, your future family if you don't have kids, to protect your kids if you're a father, to protect your grandchildren if you're a grandfather.
Hmm.
And you take that step back, even if it's a half step, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if you're a real man. And that's the point that I was trying to make last week is, we can blame politicians, we can blame, Newsom for his rhetoric and um, all the other
Every
politics.
other Democrat.
Yeah, or every rhino or every Republican that's lied to us and isn't representing us. I mean, the
Hmm.
percentage of the representation out there, it doesn't matter if they're left or right, they're not representing us. That's our fault, and we have to take accountability for it. And if anything, Charlie Kirk was the great example on how to do it, engaging, having those conversations, stepping out of your comfort zone, and just getting that done. But
Hmm.
I just wanted to get that off on my chest, and give him
No, I.
props for what he really was, what he really represented. We could talk about him being a conservative and all this and other stuff, but that's the root cause right there of what they did to him.
Hmm. Yeah, and to the point you were just making, it's like our representation, our government throughout this country, local, national, has let us down because Mhm. So people are emboldened to do things like this because they see no real consequences for actions. We can, a lot of people were bringing up the Ukrainian girl, right? That guy was arrested 14 times until he finally killed somebody. You know, who's allowing that? We are, the people, because we're voting for these people based on emotion and not results. And again, when people see that, they get emboldened and they they do things like this because they've been lied to. They see there's no consequences, and here we are today, right? The other thing too that with me, because like I kind of get what Gio's saying, I get what you're both saying, and you want to be thoughtful, you want to be, you know, not reactive, but things you see, just how you feel, things that have been said, it's real infuriating, you know, because I've seen a lot of people that are either celebrating it or justifying it because they didn't like him. Most people didn't like him because they either fell for a false label or they just don't know how to handle a different opinion. And a lot of the people that you do see celebrating are young people that maybe don't have kids, don't have family like that. Maybe they weren't close to their. I don't know what it is. It's got to be something. But there's a void there that allows them to. Well, it's not
God,
a void. It's been filled with the devil and demonic thoughts to think that
you're right. The void is God.
yeah, and you know it makes you even more mad. There's been people in our comments, call us white supremacists. Look at us. Like, you know, it's to the point where like sometimes you think like, okay, yeah, you know, not to sound crazy, but people like that maybe do gotta get punched in the mouth. And that's not gonna sound good, but
Well,
it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see. I think that's the weird, not the weird thing, but like the thing about this is like you get so many different types of thoughts and emotions that it's hard to for me it's hard to like focus on one because it's like
yeah.
different angles. I'm a dad. He was a dad. um he had a family, he had his kids, and that's the last thing I want to see. um yeah, I just it's and sometimes it gets a little hard to explain like what I'm thinking when it comes to this. It's so much.
No, I know what you're getting. But were you gonna say something, Gio?
Um, no, well, there was the comment that Danny said, punching him in the mouth, and while I agree that I feel that sometimes because I I'm one to who used to be the type of person that reacted, you know, but now, um, you know, the words, they bother me, especially when people label me, uh, because I see the same thing in the comments, like a white supremacist. Um, I need to, um, I'm just nopal. How I'm turning my back on my heritage and this and that. I see the comments, and I don't fight like in the sense of, no, I'm not. I'm Mexican. I promise. I fight more like I end up responding like, yeah, dude, like, uh, if you feel that way, you know, you're wrong. Well, you should listen to the podcast and see. You might actually agree with us more than you think. You'll see that I normally respond with something like that. But as far as like the punching in the mouth, it's kind of Gavin Newsom. I'm sorry.
I know when
I'm
I
holding
said
back.
it, when I said it, that's the first thing that came to my head. That's why I was like, I don't know if that sounds right.
I was
Um,
I I'm really holding back because on DMU I would do the little
Can I
dance and
defend Daniel a little bit? Yours was way more genuine than his was. His was like he was trying to force a watermelon out of his ass when he said it. Yours was
yeah.
more believable, more
And
genuine.
you know what? In this instance, in the discussion that we're having, you're exactly right, Danny. Um, Daniel sounds more authentic because when Gavin Newsom brought it up, talking about Trump, it was like, it's so disingenuous. The nobody really is upset about um, what Donald Trump is doing. It's not really affecting California. The things that you do as a governor here in California affect us more. Not to take it off topic, right? But there's nothing that you guys have said, especially Danny. There's nothing that you have said that I disagree with. I don't
mhm,
disagree with anything that you said. I do think that Charlie Kirk was a real man. He had no fear to get up there and talk and say the things that needed to be said. And I don't agree with everything that he said, but I agree with a lot of what he said. To me, a lot of
mhm,
it was common sense. A lot of it was from a Christian perspective. I've been one to argue against some of his decisions, um, but at the end of the day, I do agree he's a real man, and he was I don't want to say, because I don't know him personally. I don't want to say righteous, but he was definitely, from a public standpoint, he was definitely a very good man,
mhm,
and definitely held the hearts of the youth, Gen Z, millennials. Man, what a speaker! Because I've watched him several times. I've heard him give speeches. I've heard his debates, or debate light. It wasn't so much like a Steven Crowder debate, but more of like discourse, right? That
mhm,
might be the right word for it. I've watched them, and I've always thought like, man, this guy is sharp. He's really bright. Somebody can bring some points, and right away he's uh, got his points, and it's targeted. It is on point. It's not like he's dancing around it. He was sharp. He was a sharp man.
mhm.
So, it's to me, it's a tragedy.
And
It's
and then
yeah, it's a real tragedy.
before you go, Danny, because I don't want you to lose your thought, but just two things that I kind of thought of. It's like, you know. I don't think, for us to comment on him and what we've seen from him, I don't think we personally have to know him, right? I think we knew who he was through, what he was putting out there, right? So we kind of knew him in that. We know we personally didn't know him, but that doesn't take away from the fact that what happened to him was evil. And just because we didn't know him, we can't call that out. I think that's what we should be doing. And the second thing, because I said about people, celebrating it and posting this and that, I'm gonna say something that I don't know if Danny, you were gonna say this or not, but I think you might have. You've always said, "Good, stand up, show us who you are," and that thought also came to my mind.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth, Kirk.
I'm sorry.
No, no, and that's something that I really believe is that a lot of people get upset. You use the emotions, anger, want to fight and stuff like that. And to me, is I've gotten older and you analyze things a little bit differently. I'd rather know who you are within 5 minutes than knowing who you really are in 5 years. So all of
Mm,
you that are celebrating and commenting the way that you are, keep doing it. We want to know who you are. We want to know, what line, what side you stand on, and and I'm not saying that in the way that Gavin Newsom said it, to fight or anything like that. But and I'm not saying this to be condescending or anything like that, but to pray for you. Um, God calls us to love our enemies, and you know we're human beings, and our first initial instinct is to get upset, to get mad. I did.
mhm.
uh
Yeah.
have anger. I did. um and then slowly starts turning into sadness, and thinking about this person that did this. They're obviously not in their right mind. Taking accountability comes into play. Is where were this person's parents? That they
Mhm,
know that they weren't well. That the medication that they possibly maybe were on, that the parents know what the side effects were, that they try to get them mental help. um, you know that they go along with the delusions that this child must have had when they were small. And you start going into the root cause. If you kind of start picking up what I'm putting down, is
mhm,
this person that did this, or these people that do these evil things. You mentioned that person on the bus, that did this. They were mentally ill. I didn't do much research, but I saw a couple of things that they weren't right. They were mentally ill, or he's mentally ill. um, so let's instead of having that initial, well, like I said, we're human beings, so we're going to have our initial reactions. But start thinking deeper, and start thinking of the root cause of what's causing all of this. And that's
mhm,
what Charlie was doing. Is he was getting them at that turning point at the youth level, and bringing them back into the light. He was bringing them back in.
mhm.
And it's full circle what we're talking about here. And remember what Charlie's trying to do. He's trying to get them back. So let's
Mhm.
get back those people that are reacting and celebrating the way that they are.
Like
Not
this
have
guy.
that hate and anger. It's not going to do us any good. It's just going to, as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this right now. With the people that are celebrating and the people that are responsible for this, the evil, they're hoping that we have anger, They're
Mm-hmm.
hoping that we do fight. And once we have that, once we do that, we lose. They win.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that. We can't fall into that trap. Let's take accountability. Let's fix what we have to fix. Let's be real men. I said it earlier. Real men to protect their family. They put themselves between dangers here. We're in the middle, and who we're protecting is to our back. Did you know that in Minneapolis, when that shooter walked into the church or the classroom where the kids were, I heard that the older kids stood in front of the younger children to protect them.
Mm.
Use that as an example. The older children stepped in front of the younger children to protect them. Us, we, the adults, the men, the women, the protectors of our kids, need to step in front and protect them.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna wait for someone to come in, a politician to come in and do that. We're doomed. We've lost. So
Mm-hmm.
when these politicians aren't doing what they're supposed to do, they're not representing us. We're allowing that. And I hate to keep going back to that point, but that's kind of what has been in my mind um, a lot since the Minneapolis incident.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to,
Can I ask you a question, Danny?
yeah.
um, would you consider what we do in a habit of an enforcer, like coming on here weekly on Latino Free Minds or whichever platform we're coming on? Would you consider that a way of trying to help um, our families or help, uh, you know, in my instance, I want to raise awareness here in California,
Hmm.
or even to people outside of California of the things that are happening here that might soon affect them outside of California. Would you consider that along the lines of what you're saying? Or would you consider that more of like a, dare I say it, like a keyboard warrior?
I think, okay, so my opinion is this, and I'm going to tell you because,
And Danny, I ask you because you do both here, and I know you go out there in your community, and you go by foot door to door, um, for candidates out there. I know you've done the work.
well, for my experience, okay, so the reason that we started doing this is because there's that, for me, there's that natural instinct, um, like fatherly instinct, if you want to call it that. But I came to a realization that I wasn't being that. I was being what popular culture told me a man was. I could rattle you off, football stats and basketball stats, and I could be at work and, you know, being one of the guys and doing all of that. But I came to a realization that that's not what's being a man. There, I was being a version of a man that I was told that I should be. And to answer the question about what we're doing here is that I knew that I had to learn a lot more in order to get to that point. And I see growth and progression um, with doing this because we are learning, we are getting more involved, and who knows what we'll end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
Me, this is the beginning stages, but at least we're making the effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a sacrifice.
There's so not to cut you off, man, but there's so many people that can't, even if you think this is small, obviously if you compare it to Kirk, but there's so many people that are even afraid of doing just this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People don't want to lose their jobs. People don't want to this and that. But it's like, dude, the people that are recording themselves celebrating, they're
You
not
know,
scared.
see,
You know?
the reason I ask is because I have heard things like that, and you know, nothing. I don't want to diminish what Charlie Kirk was doing by any means. Please, if you're listening, you know what he was doing was great, but to do what he was doing at the level he was at, he wasn't doing it alone. He had a team, right? Um, he had help. You know, when he started, it was much smaller, like this. He was going out there doing man on the street type things, and going to college campuses and having to do all of these things on his own. And as I've gotten into this, I realize it's not just opening a computer on Tuesday night and rambling on. No, I have to prepare topics. I have to look into those topics. I mean, I might prepare 20 topics and only four of them are worth talking about because the rest of them are either too early in the stages of getting information on. Some of them are probably, I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, this is probably not really anything. Like maybe this is fake news type situation. And it's for me it's like I don't think people realize the amount of effort. I'm not just sitting here talking behind a computer, and the effort that we do aside from preparing for the show and doing the show. Like we make these clips. We prepare our notes for those clips. We post them online. We're on Instagram any chance we get to try to spread the message because we are trying to grow. Um, so yeah, that's I mean that's it's the reason I ask. I mean, part of me doesn't really. Your answer wouldn't have hurt me, um, but I wanted to see the perspective from somebody who's actually out there doing those sorts of things that uh, people in politics expect people like us to do. Because I see Danny and I know he does those things. And I don't do those things. I don't go canvassing. I don't have the time to do it between the podcast and church and work. Like I have a full time job. So um, and that's not taken away from anything that Danny does because I know he also has a full time job. I know he also goes to church. I know he also has a family. Um, but everybody has their own mission, and I do hope that one day, if this is God's calling for one of us, that one of us get to that level. And I do pray for protection and guidance through that whole way. Um, and yeah, no, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things where we never know what'll happen, right? We don't know God's plan for all of us. Um, right now, and obviously we've been doing this since 2022 is when we started the podcast and everything that we're doing. And it's like, we don't know where that will go. We don't know, you know, the end result of what we're doing, but I do know that when we do, like you said, come and do these episodes and the clips that we do, our intention is for people that might not know to be informed. I believe we do that with good intentions. We're not trying to misinform people or lead people astray. We see things a certain way versus how it gets reported or whatnot, because
Yeah,
we know everything that's at play. and I'd like to believe we're genuinely just trying to help people make a more informed decision. Um, you know, and in a lot of sense, and I don't know, Danny can probably comment on this, but it's been politically focused, right? And I think too, you know, more of an emphasis on the faith that we have should be there. You know what I mean?
Do you think you mean politically focused as in our shows being more politically focused?
Just the clips that we do. You know what I mean? It's mostly like on current bills. For example, California, we got the special election coming up, so
Yeah.
it's 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 political information. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
not telling not
I
telling
don't
people how to vote or what. I mean, for that one, yeah, but
I do agree with you.
typically no.
I do agree with you there because, for me, I sometimes I think, it would be so easy to just because there's so much content out there on ridiculousness of, you know, I don't want to pick on any particular group, but let's just say like LGBTQ, right? There's so many videos out there of people acting like fools, and that's not to say that everybody in LGBTQ is a fool, but there's plenty of videos out there that people like to pick on, and it would be so easy to put a show together of content like that. And I know that while I wouldn't be happy with that sort of content, I know that the show would grow fast. I
Mhm.
would get a lot of eyeballs, but that's not what I want to do. I want to make a difference. I don't think that that makes a difference. To me, it's like, uh, you know, what can I do what can I talk about that's going to make a difference? Well, let me focus here locally. Um, you know, and that's what makes it so tough is there's not a lot of news. You don't get a lot of news out of Sacramento on what's happening in the state. It's only the really big things, and when the really big things happen, there's just so little news. Like it's like when there's an assembly bill, if they don't want to put it out, right? They don't want to put it out so that people can read it and know what's really going on. You kind of have to put the words together of people on the inside, and by the time the words come out, it's like, well, is there enough time to get the message out there? We're going to vote in this thing in November. It's already September. How many people are going to hear it? How many people want to hear it? We don't have the opportunity to get the word out. And uh, you know, to do a national story, if Donald Trump meets with Vladimir Putin, yeah, there's a lot of information there. But is anything that I say about that really going to make a difference? I don't think it is. I don't think anybody's tuning into my podcast and expecting to hear a new take on something. But where do people go to learn about happening in California? Because we are the leading edge of the left wing here in California. Um, so we as far like I can speak for myself. I know it because I sometimes I send my notes to you guys and like, hey, look, this is what I want to talk about, and um, I you guys never come back like, oh no, do this, do that. It's just more like a hey, make sure that the things I talk about, can you just double check, make sure that this stuff is just give me like a little editorial review because I might have something in there that I went down the wrong path on. Um, and I appreciate you guys for doing that. At the same time, I know that you guys do the same thing. You guys have to prepare all your stuff. It's a lot of work, and that's on top of everything else that you guys have going on. We don't get paid big bucks. We don't get paid anything for doing this. This is all on our own time. You know,
Can I tell you something?
I want to hear it.
I don't care what people think.
I don't care what people think either, but I do want to make a difference.
So
I do want to make a difference.
let me elaborate. So the reason that I don't care is because we've said it from episode one. I'm not here proclaiming that I know X, Y, and Z. I'm here proclaiming that I'm here to learn. You know, get I'm stepping outside of my comfort zones in talking about certain things that it forces me to do research on and get educated on. Um,
Hmm.
we're talking about things that are important to us, um, that haven't been important to us. So when we say red pilling or opening eyes, it's to the things that people don't put the level of importance that we realized should have that level of importance. So that's why when we have conversations and go, "Hey, if there's only one person that kind of perks up their ears and goes, hey, that's a good point of view, that's a good perspective, then I'm good. Just with
Hmm.
that person, I'm good because
Hmm.
I realized that that is what's important. You know, I people when I say this, I really think people think that I'm crazy when I say this. Is that when I gave up sports, it was cold turkey, man. It was like one day like this, look, like that. I was like, I'm investing an entire Sunday. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't attending mass. This was my God. This is what was driving my day. Okay. And I said, no more. I would end up upset if my team lost. What I look back at that and I look at all the years that I wasted investing so much time and energy learning these things that brought no good. That it didn't bring anything to fruition. That did it? Did I teach my kids something valuable with that? No. Did I gain anything by it? No. I was wasting time. It was taking time, valuable time away from me. That's what I want people to uh, start realizing. Is it for everybody? No. That's just the reaction that I had when I had that realization. So if someone says that we're X, Y, and Z and it's a negative commentary, so be it. That's you, man. You go do you. You have your own talents. If you want to talk about sports on a podcast and you're successful and you become a millionaire, bravo. If you want to be the one that talks smack about people and that makes you successful, bravo. Do it. Everybody's got their own gifts, their own talents. All I'm saying is this: I'd rather be investing my time into doing something like this. That's
Hmm.
what I'm saying. And what people's opinions are about that, I used to get bothered a lot. I I'm being dead serious and genuine when I say this. When people say negative things, anger doesn't even come into my radar at
I
all.
laugh. Most of the time I laugh.
Yeah, you guys have been doing this longer than me. Um, yeah, no, I appreciate it. I
No,
towards the
but
end, and I agree with you. I agree with everything that you're saying, and it resonates. And I see the comments, and everybody's kind of saying the same thing, like yes, and fight, 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 and sending their respects to us, and I appreciate all that because I'm new to this fight, obviously, but at the same time, I do want to continue on. I do want to keep fighting and doing something that is making a difference. And I know it makes a difference because people say it. People,
hmm
like when Daniel went to the Capitol, and people were like, "Hey, you guys are the guys that make those videos." Um, and when people send us messages like DMs, like, we really appreciate you guys talking about this because nobody's talking about this. And what I love the most is when somebody like Danny puts a video out, and 3, 4, 5 weeks later, the GOP of California will put out a video saying all the same things. And I'm like, man, Danny was saying all those same things in his video, and like spot on. It's like they just took his words and redid it with somebody from San Diego or Sacramento, Daniel does the same thing. A lot of Danny's around here, um, where we put out this content, and it's like, hey guys, before people start telling you, here's the information on what's going on. And this is the nice thing of knowing some people on the inside of politics is, we get to find out the information on this, even though it's a little trickle here and there. So when we put that information out, it's like, man, I like the assembly bills for the kids that we were talking about in August. Yeah, it just weighed
We
heavy on my
talked about
heart.
a huge win, as a matter of fact, for one of those. So, you know,
AB, I think
uh,
it was AB 84.
hmm
Yeah. Just it
Yeah.
weighs heavy on me because not in a bad way, like in a good way. Like, man, that's so amazing that we were able to help get that information out there so that people can go up to the Capitol and protest against what our lawmakers were doing, our quote unquote representatives. We allegedly voted these people in, and the bills that they write, it's like, oh, is that really in my interest? Because I'm just thinking about my kids. So
Hmm.
yeah,
can
No. Yeah.
can I tell you something that's helped me out tremendously? So,
Hmm.
and this is for any aspect of your life, whether it's personal, in your family, at work, whatever, is you have to focus on definitions. And what I mean by that is that everybody's got a different definition or interpretation of one thing. And
Hmm.
no, it's not your reality. I'm not going there. It's not an interpretation of your reality. It's just an interpretation of or definition of what something means to you. So I'm going to use an example. So let's take fight. In this context, you were going to continue to fight.
yeah,
So one person's definition of fight is to spread the word, right? To spread the truth.
yeah,
Hmm.
Okay. That's one person's definition of fight. Another one might take it and say, my interpretation is to go out there and speak to the youth like Charlie Kirk did, or,
Hmm.
go
Go
to
canvas.
canvassing and stuff like that. Everybody's got a different definition of fight. So when I get, if someone was to tell me, like, what you're doing is not a real fight, you're not a real fighter, you're not a real warrior, you're not a real um, um, example of someone fighting. I'm okay with it because I'm like, okay, I get you. Your interpretation of fighting is this, and
That.
I'm okay
Hmm.
with it. This is my interpretation. This is, you don't know what's going on in my life. You don't know how, the time restraints that I have in um, my life. So, this is what my limitations are. This is the interpretation of fight of what I can do. At least I'm doing something.
yeah,
So
Hmm.
that's once
Hmm.
once you start taking in account that when someone says something to you, it's their definition of that. And I'm
it's
okay with it because my definition is this. But if you realize that your mind is at ease, the anger goes away, your emotions are uh, leveled out, and it's everybody else that they're on this roller coaster of emotions and all
Hmm.
of that. But
Yeah.
anyways, you know, I think that kind of in the context that we're talking about this, it's relevant, because
Hmm.
everybody's got different interpretations, and this is, at this moment, on as far as what we can do, this is our interpretation of fight, because you know it could be taken out of context too. It could be literally fight. I saw a video earlier where someone ran through with a car through a vigil for Charlie Kirk or something like that, and I think the person they ended up taking him outside the car, or he came outside of the car, and they were physically
And they fought
attacked,
him.
right?
Hmm.
That could be
I
their interpretation of
I
fight.
I have to. Yeah, I don't think it was a car. I think there was a scooter.
Was it a scooter?
It was a
Okay.
Yeah,
scooter.
yeah, scooter.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's scary, man. Oh,
that's brave. You're asking
yeah.
for it though. At that point, you're unprotected in
I
a
don't know.
scooter.
Hey, Danny, I don't know if they're beating him up because he was saying anything about Charlie Kirk or because he was riding one of those stupid scooters. I'm just
To be determined.
kidding. I'm
But
just kidding.
no, I that makes a lot of sense, and
Yeah. No,
I
I
think
agree.
what we do is part of the fight. I think there's different levels of fighting, different avenues of fighting this. What
Yeah.
we're fighting. Most of it is honestly evil, um, and deception.
Mhm.
And I wish I knew the verse off the top of my head, but I know there's a verse in the Bible, and I'll look it up after, that says something about those who deceive is because they're evil,
Hmm.
something along those lines. Um, and that's what we're fighting.
And you know
So,
what? Can I say something? Because it's not about picking apart what someone can do as far as the fight goes. So someone can step away and do this, and I would consider this fighting also. And is let's say that you're the head of your household, or you're a father, you're a mother, and you start having those conversations with your kids and start talking to them about you know
mhm,
spiritual spiritual things, and what they're learning at school, and bringing God back into your household and stuff like that. I would consider that fighting back. The evil. What are we odds against here? Good and good and evil. So
mhm,
I would consider that an interpretation of fighting is even doing that.
Yeah. And all of this reminds me of somebody intelligent from a Monday Night Podcast that we partner with. Uh, he called out um, the right in saying, the problem with the right is that we don't want to work together. We all want to spearhead, but nobody wants to work together to get this done. And to me, all of these little things add up. The canvassing, the podcast, the media, the politicians on that are aligned with us, the church, the school, the family, the households, the parents talking with their children, because they're going to grow up too, and they're going to vote too, right, when they get older. Um, all of these things add up, and you're right. Everybody is fighting the fight in their way, and it's just mind blowing to me, Danny. You just scolded me today.
yeah. Well,
I don't know. I mean,
anything
that's why
else?
it's good to have conversations. Like um, when I
Yeah.
was younger, and even to this day, I love having conversations with older people, people that are wiser than one. And one at one point I was the youngest one. Now I'm slowly becoming uh, older, and it's because of exactly that. It's understanding that we have a lot to learn. If you're of the mindset that you know so much, and you really don't have much to learn anymore, you're sadly mistaken. The wisest person that you may know is still learning, and they're never going to finish learning. And talking to older people that have had life experiences that we can't even imagine, is important, and having that dialogue. Now think about this. That's why there's divide and conquer, so that we don't have these type of conversations, so that you know
Hmm.
we we can't congregate and have these conversations, and really find out who is attacking us.
Hmm.
And only by having these conversations and talking to people that are older and wiser than us is the way that we're going to be able to do that. And um, I that's why I really love what we're doing. I don't give a damn what anybody says, but if we're learning and growing, that's all
Hmm.
that matters. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, we will continue this this fight, and you know, it'll be interesting to see the effects of everything, and you know, the outcome of everything. I don't think that evil will win. I think that whatever evil spirit was caused what happened, I think they're in for a rude awakening. Um, and then just that's all I got. You guys got anything else?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you guys have to, sign off or you got anything pressing, but look, uh, what I want to say is this: is whoever did this had to make a decision. Okay, they said, we're either going to allow Charlie Kirk to, continue doing what he's doing and bringing the youth into the light, because you have to remember is that if he gets these 20 something year olds to
Hmm.
seeing the light and making a turning point in their life, that means that moving forward, once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. Okay. So that's a generation that is awake moving forward. Okay. Getting closer to God if, they end up going in, that spiritual route. So these people had to make a decision, allow them to continue doing that or stop them. Okay. And one of the things that they have to take into account is the consequences of doing something like this. Okay. How are the people going to react? Are they going to cower and take a step back and hide behind that wall? Or are they going to get emboldened and, walk taller, with their chin up and not allow, what Charlie Kirk did or what he stood for, um, to fade away? And in my heart, I feel that they probably magnified what Charlie Kirk was trying to accomplish. And I really hope that, like you said, Gio, he was an intelligent man. Um, I hope that 1,000 more Charlie Kirks stand up that
Oh,
had
they will.
the gift that he had and continue to do what he had been doing. But more than anything, like we said, just any old uneducated regular Joe Blow starts having conversation just with his kids and his family, that's what's more important too. So
Hmm.
I hope it has that effect, and this backfires in their face, and that's what I'm praying for. Um, the other thing that I want to say too is it's 9/11 today, and
Hmm.
talk about impactful days. I remember the day 9/11 happened like if it happened this morning. Um, talk about emotions and anger, and at that time I'm not the same Danny that I am now.
Hmm.
I was a lot younger, and it's changed our country, um, and I believe that our the rights that were taken away from us, com, you know, it's monumental what happened that day, not just because of the all the people that died that day, and God bless their souls. Um, but we can't forget. I know that there's a lot of messages that went out today about never forget, and
Mhm.
let's never forget and be men, for all the men out there, for you women out there, you know, be that maternal mother, that nurturing person that your instincts, your soul um, wants to be. Don't listen to all these people in popular culture telling you that you can, that you don't have to be that, because at that point you're fighting your natural instinct,
Mhm.
to be motherly and nurturing. um, don't fall for it. And
Mhm.
you men, don't fall for it either. Be a real man.
Yeah, 100%. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. For all the people watching on Instagram, thank you for the comments and the support. Fortunately, we can't show those comments here, but we appreciate your kind words. With that being said, um, that's all I got. Danny, Gio, thank you for coming on, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.
God bless you.
To everyone out here what Jesus stood for, and especially the qualities of love, how to love your neighbor even if they don't agree with you.
So what is your name again?
Talise.
Talise, that's a beautiful question. I'm glad you came up to ask it. So John 8, if I'm drawing from memory correctly, best embodies both Christ's mercy and love, but also his commitment to truth. And sometimes in the modern gospel, we overemphasize the grace and we underemphasize the truth.
Yeah.
And so we are far too willing to say, hey, Jesus loves everybody, but we don't get to the second part of the conversation that says Jesus doesn't want you to live in sin. So this is, in John 8, it's best embodied, right? Almost every Christian in this audience will be able to tell you the first part of this, which is a bunch of Sadducees and Pharisees who are standing around with rocks, and they're about to stone the prostitute woman. And Jesus comes up and says, let the first among you without sin cast the first stone. And everyone starts dropping the rocks. But what comes next shows that Christ is not just grace-focused, he's simultaneously truth-focused. He goes up to the woman who had a career in selling herself for sex and said, sin no more. Now, imagine today how much trouble you would get in if you would go up to somebody and say, stop sinning. Oh, you're being too judgmental. No, you're actually being Christ-like. So Jesus stood. He was 100% grace and truth. And that tension is very hard in a modern world because we want to overemphasize grace when in reality Christ loves us too much to have us continue to live in sin. He wants us to try to elevate our actions to glorify God in all that we do.